welcome everyone to episode 31 of the Thundercrafts podcast, where we forge through the shitstorm that was WCW Thunder. I am your host, a benevolent boss and dictator, Josh Kaiser. And joining me today, a man who tosses the salads of Conan's Boys in Lockdown, Kyle Hogan.
Oh, God. All I thought this whole entire time was, oh, God, what's he going to pick for me? We both kind of agree that there wasn't a whole lot of quotable moments in this one. But you know what? There were two good ones. So, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, there was not much, but when you get the salad tossing brought out of literally nowhere on a Thursday night television show on TBS, I feel like you got to call it out.
Oh, I mean, yeah, absolutely. TBS Thursday evening. I think not only once, but I think twice we had a salad tossing moment in this show. So, I mean, we're here to answer all the tough questions, and we're also here to call out the maybe the most either questionable or the hot takes of the show. So that's why we're here.
That is why we're here. Of course, it is Thunder 31. It is September 10th, 1998. We are not in Peoria, Illinois, with a bunch of garbage roster, Kyle. This is the go home show for Fall Brawl, War Games, 1998. Of course, it's the 9 men in a cage. You got teams WCW with Warrior, DDP, and Roddy Piper. Of course, the Wolfpack with Nash, Sting, and Lex Luger. And then, of course, Team NWO, Stevie Ray, Hogan, and Bret Hart. So this is the go-home show.
Also, I got just full disclosure. This is one of the very few times that Kaiser and I actually are in the same room right now. We're actually doing this together.
It's been a long time since
so I'm looking at his eyes as he's naming up all the guys that are in this. You would think that when you're having like this Paramount main event at Fall Brawl War Games. Obviously, you've said it before, War Games has got some of the most convoluted bullshit rules that probably ever existed in a single matchup. But to have this be the winner gets a world title shot, and you're like, look at all the who's on here, and we're like, all these people where I wouldn't mind them main eventing.
Ultimate Warrior back. I mean, that's a big deal, despite the fact that it's a total colossal failure. You're bringing him back. You've got Kevin Nash in there. You've got Sting, Lex Luger. I mean, you can add up the amount of championships won with all of these people. And then you have Stevie Ray.
Yeah, that's what I was going to call him now. He's so excited to tell me about all these names, and then he kind of gives like the eye roll of Stevie Ray, which we've also discussed in private that Stevie Ray, if you were to pick a 3-man roster from NWO Hollywood, and let's be honest, I think a lot of us have remembered that the NWO Hollywood has been known to have a B team, and so there's not everybody.
It's not a C team.
Yeah, not all of them are probably cut out to be in the same echelon.
They're not all main eventers.
Sure, unless it's Thunder and you're Stevie Ray.
Right.
But you would think though that if Hogan's going to come up with. And you think to yourself, did he pick this team because it's Stevie Ray's new persona? We're trying to push him. That's probably from a business perspective, probably from the back. But you also think to yourself, does Hogan really want to have 3 egos in there that want to usurp him, get that world shot? And once again, that might be a reason why, and we'll talk more about it with, there's a little bit of dissension in the NWO again, maybe Stevie Ray's a guy that would bow down to Hogan and let him get the win.
And that's a fair point, because that's what I was going to say is, if you buy into the mindset that NWO Hollywood, Hogan is the Godfather, right? So you would think that no matter who wins if let's say the Giant was in this match, which I think we both agree the Giant is more deserving of this than Stevie Ray at this point. If the Giant won, you would think he would relinquish his title opportunity to Hogan, right? But maybe in your in the mindset there, and this is again us delving a lot deeper than I'm sure the WCW writers ever did,
or even the people that they're listening to Thundercrafts right now. Well, like, come on, we haven't even talked about Thunder yet, really, and we're going into War Games.
But yes, I mean, if you're going to name people, and you're like, if Stevie Ray, God forbid, he ever got a pin in this, he would easily relinquish this opportunity to Hogan.
Oh, sure. And
then Hogan could get him with his Flex and Bischoff there, they could get him a United States title. Well, I think that's Bret Hart's title right now, so maybe a television title match.
Yeah, who is the U.S. champ right now? I assume it's still
Bret Hart, I guess. We don't know, but the only reason we're confused is Bret Hart is on this show tonight, but he did not wear his title out there, so he might be champ. We'll see. That's it, Kyle. Let's actually get into the card. We're just excited because unlike the last 4 weeks at least, the superstars are here tonight. The matches are pretty much trash for the most part, but we get a lot of story, we get a lot of promos, and a lot to talk about. So
yes, we always talk about whether or not, like, does the show either entertain or does it at least move the needle? And I think this is definitely a move the needle. It was entertaining for the sense of the promos and stuff. In discussion points, sure. So it's like, you have like the triangle of wrestling is like each corner. One is like the match content, the match quality. Then you've got the story driven stuff, and then you just got just the baseline TV entertainment.
Right.
So I think this definitely hit two of the three practically pretty well. If you're here for 5-star matches, this is definitely not the week to be listening to this
and
one.
Thunder's not the show to be watching for that.
It's not. But we have had borderline 4-star matches on Thunder. At least we've rated 3.5, 3 3/4 in the past. But yeah, let's just move on here because we'll definitely talk more about that as we go.
We are, of course, live. We're in Lexington, Kentucky, Kyle. It's 3 days from Fall Brawl. Tony does let us know that the greatest matches ever happened tonight. I'm going to let you know that is hyperbole.
Which is not shocking. That's where Tony is king.
But he does let us know right off the start, Kyle. Goldberg is here, which is a good start. Piper's going to be here tonight, and all of the members of the NWO Black and White, which there's a lot of members, so I wanted to hold him to that. And as we get through this,
we will pull an audit.
He's not far off. Let's just say that. And Lex Luger will also be here. So we got a lot of people here. Commentary team's going to open up, of course, discussing War Games. That's the big thing. I couldn't tell you pretty much any other match on the card outside of Raven versus Saturn. That one's been pushed, I think, for a pretty good amount. But outside of that, I don't think a single match has been discussed outside of the War Games itself, which I kind of understand, but still.
Oh yeah. This is definitely a Fall Brawl War Games. If you were to ask me or ask the regular Thunder Buddies, if you will, what matches are in it? Yeah, I think we basically would say War Games,
and Saturn versus Raven, because of that match, of course, made signed on WCW Saturday Night. If you recall that.
And once again, you're welcome that Thunder was able to provide you moving the needle content that was on Saturday night.
That said, the show's going to open up. NWO music plays, and out comes a lot of the NWO. Of course, you got Hogan's here, Bischoff's here. So right off the bat, Kyle, you get two of the head guys.
Yeah, this is president and vice president, basically.
Stevie Ray's, of course, accompanying them. Buff Bagwell's here. It's been a while since we've seen him, I think. And then you get Kurt Hennig, the Disciple, and Vincent. Bischoff's going to get on the microphone. He's going to say the most beautiful people in the world are here tonight in this ring. So that was a burn and a diss against the Kentucky crowd. And then he says, thanks everyone for coming to his show. And then Hogan's going to get on there and basically says he premeditatedly planned how to take out everyone in the War Games, and says he's got a big surprise for that big sleazy spoon, Kevin Nash.
I'm glad that he's sticking with the spoon nickname for Kevin Nash, which still makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like, what's the... I thought to myself, is Spoon like a weightlifting thing? Like he's got like no leg, like long legs, and then the spoon's supposed to be the body? Is that what's supposed to mean? Like he's got like a
I think you're analyzing
torso,
it more. I'm taking a big legs. Spoon like somebody who cuddles, but maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe you know what? Maybe we should ask Hogan on Twitter and just be like, what does spoon mean? Were you just like making fun of his lankiness, or are you saying that is he a gentle lover?
Right. Hogan is going to call out specifically Bret Hart, and as you remember, Bret Hart is one of the three members of Team NWO Black and White, and there is some dissension there.
There's no good Hogan angle unless there's somebody he's supposed to be teaming with that he's at odds with.
Right. Of course, he says he's got Stevie Ray to have his back in case Bret Hart decides to do something. So you've already got Hart and Hogan kind of at odds. Of course, you remember last week we did see a little some still photos of that where Hogan was whipping Sting and Bret Hart was having none of it. So maybe you got a little bit of Bret Hart wanting to get out of the NWO here. We'll have to see. And he does say, in the end, if he gets this world title match, he's going to get after Goldberg and his old bald raccoon head. Which I feel like, and I think we've said this in the past, Hogan is not one for writers. I think Hogan, for the most part, when he goes out there, this is he grew up 70s, 80s, early 90s wrestling, where he goes out there, he's just going to talk. He can say whatever he wants. He says whatever he wants. And once again, this is back in the day when you weren't on TV once or twice a week. So like when you were having these, also a lot of stuff was taped. So he could go off on the cup, and if he screwed up, they could just retake it if he really messed up. Watch this particular promo. And watch as he tries to put a dig on Goldberg, and as he goes, Goldberg and his old bald, and then you could tell he's like running through
I think a thousand woodland animals that he could think of.
And he settled on raccoon.
He settled on raccoon on this one.
Yeah, so after this promo, we're going to move to our opening bout of the night, Kyle. Silver King's going to make his way out, so I was getting a little nervous, but he's wrestling Juventud Guerrero for the Cruiserweight title, so this has potential to be an okay opening bout. Right?
Absolutely. First match of the night, we're checking off two things, I feel like. One, it's going to be a fast-paced match because it's going to be a luchador match.
People who have worked together, so there's some chemistry there.
Good workers that know how to work together. We'll say that, and it's for a title. So I mean, this is already quite the
step up from a lot of what we've seen last week.
Exactly.
That said, before the match even gets started, I think actually before Hui is even introduced, we cut to the backstage. Jericho's there. He's cutting a promo about being television champ, and basically he says that, they are primarily a television company, which is a fair point. And he says that means he's the most important champ because he's a television champ. That puts him above the United States champ and puts him above the world champion Goldberg. If you recall, this might start to be the beginning of Jericho's sort of quote-unquote feud.
Yeah, the mocking and the kind of calling out of Goldberg. Yeah.
Right. And he says Goldberg has its own security. Well, Jericho has hired his own security and cameraman tonight. I think if you are a fan of Jericho or wrestling in the 90s, you know what's coming, and you're probably about as excited as we were when we saw this. That said, we'll get back to the match. The match was kind of quick. There was one great spot. I think you and I both kind of were shocked by it. It was a Silver King threw Juvi off the ropes and did like a pop-up move and popped up into a drop kick, which was kind of a unique 1-2 punch, so to speak.
Yeah, I think we said like he kind of like we see a lot of the times where like someone will you throw him into the ropes when he comes back and you kind of just like pick him up from the chest and kind of just fly him in the air. Yeah, a lot of times you just let him land,
go and let him slam
or
down.
There might be something else like a lot of times they'll do that move and maybe Juvi will counter with a drop kick.
Right.
But instead Silver King does a drop kick. And once again, the camera angle wasn't the best to see how flush it hit, but it looked good from what I saw.
No, yeah. I think the camera was perfect for what it needed to be there, because if it went from another angle, it may not have looked as flush.
Sure.
That said, they're going to go battle the outside, and Silver King's going to do a version of the Van Daminator as he tosses the chair to Juventud and drop kicks him. And that's going to disqualify him.
This is your cruiserweight title match, buddy. The last thing you want to do, which is also strange because I know that you said we're not rating this because there really wasn't much else to really go with this. But
this was the match, basically.
This is where I have to complain about the consistency of matches, and I know this is just storytelling, and I know we're not supposed to just be this nitpicky about it, but I remember a certain match. I believe it was Hogan versus Goldberg for the world title, where Hogan just has a chair and just beats the shit out of Goldberg on the outside, and they let it go because they said, "Oh, it's on the outside. They're going to be a little bit more. It's for the title. They're being more lax about it because Hogan wants Hogan would love to just be disqualified and whatever, and maybe they're letting it go because the champion is using the chair on the outside. But I feel like illegal is illegal. You know what I mean? If you can't do this, doesn't matter who it is.
This is WCW.
I get it. Trust me, I totally understand. But I actually was a bit disappointed, and I think as the match goes, they continue wrestling in the ring for a little while.
So the bell rings here, and Silver King either was confused and didn't realize it, or this was all part of the storytelling. He gets back into the ring. He's going to do like a tilt-a-whirl, razor's edge kind of move here.
It's like a helicopter... Crucifix helicopter spin.
Crucifix helicopter. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Drops him down. He's going to pin Juvi. The referee's going to say, "You got disqualified. I'm not doing anything. This match is over." Silver King's then continue to hit some chair shots and attack him.
We'll attack him with the belt too.
Yeah, he did attack him with the belt. You're right. So that's kind of be it. Not worth rating because the match wasn't really much of a match. Maybe we're pushing to a rematch, and Silver King's going to get a cruiserweight title match this Sunday.
I don't know, but you would think that from a storyline perspective, why would you give a rematch to a guy who deliberately attacked and kind of ruined his own shot? It wasn't like somebody else DQ'd him or something like that, and he deserves a second chance.
I just think the Cruiserweight title, I don't think there is a story going into Sunday. If so, we probably would have seen it here, so maybe this is going to be their kind of set up for a match on Sunday.
And I know I didn't rate this, but I feel like this is also still, I would have rated this quite low only because this is like, right off the rip, this is for the title. This is two guys that can work together well.
Right.
So let them have a match then. Like let them actually have something that the crowd can cheer about. There was nothing really to cheer or be excited about.
If I told you that they do have a match on Sunday, would you be more okay with the way that this played out?
I'd be less okay because once again, I don't remember Silver King really being in the discussion or earning a spot or him getting pushed and winning matches. Because I kind of looked at like when Prince IK was fighting like Chris Jericho for the Cruiserweight title, he was on a little bit of a winning streak going into his chance. Silver King going as Juventud Guerrera is totally inconsequential because...
Well, maybe they just want to make Hoovy look good for a match.
Once again, that's fine. Not on a pay-per-view, though. I think you can have something, give him something.
Okay. After this, we're going to get Tony Schiavone interviewing J.J. Dillon. J.J. Dillon's going to say basically what everyone's been wondering, what's on their mind. Where's Scott Hall been?
That's number 1, 2, and 3 of the things that I've been thinking about the past 4 weeks on Thunder.
He kind of hypothesizes that maybe Scott Hall is on the golf course or perhaps tanning at the beach. And he says, we expect a certain standard from our wrestlers. I'm not sure how Bischoff runs things with the NWO. Maybe he's giving Scott preferential treatment and says that, we have certain guidelines here. So you're going to have to put away your suntan lotion, park your golf clubs. That's his words, not mine. And says that...
By the way, rest in peace, Luis Piccoli. That's all I think about golf clubs.
Golf clubs. And says that Scott Hall will be wrestling this Sunday, Cal, so looks like we've got another match on our card for War Games. Scott Hall versus Conan. If you remember, Scott Hall beat Conan cleanly on Thunder a couple weeks ago, but we're going to see it again.
We're going to see it again at Fall Brawl War Games. And once again, K-Dog's got to have a match somewhere. I feel bad for a stable that has 4 people. The one guy that doesn't get in for.
There's
War
5.
Games.
Savage is just hurt though.
Oh, so yeah. Once again, yeah. Which would be a cooler comeback would be him showing up at War Games. But yeah, he's still on the shelf for a bit.
Right. After this, we're going to cut to the backstage area, and the camera work is really shoddy here. We actually struggled. We had to do some research to find out if we saw it right. Basically, Bulldog and Neidhart are attacking Lex Luger. We're pretty sure. We find out that Luger and Bulldog were supposed to wrestle tonight, and this is why they're doing some heel tactics, taking Luger out ahead of time. We later find out that because of this 2-man attack on Luger is now going to be in a tag match against them and has to find a partner, apparently. So we'll get more to that here in a little bit. Out comes Wrath in this next match, and at this point we're going to get our first sign of the night, and it says, "I'm the next Lodi." So
set your bar low, everybody.
That's Lexington for you.
By the way, I don't reflect the thoughts of Josh Kaiser.
And we find out Wrath is actually wrestling for the television title as Chris Jericho's music starts to play. We cut to the back, and there's a knock on the door. As you could imagine, it's like the parody of the Goldberg entrance, and there is Ralphus in his full glory. Of course, you got to know Ralphus. And then his other security guard, who may have been only here for the one night, glasses, mullet.
Yeah, we're just going to call him mullet glasses.
He had a Jericho-holic ninja shirt on, while I believe Ralphus said security. This is a really funny. Even now, 20 years later, we both still laugh. Jericho lost in the backstage. He walks into a broom closet to a wall and eventually locks himself outside. At this point, Wrath realizes that he's not going to be able to wrestle Jericho because Jericho's locked outside. So he goes chasing after him. At this point, the bell's going to ring. They're both going to be counted out. So really not a match here. Eventually, Wrath is going to find him outside, and he's going to kind of chase Jericho around, and that's your segment. Just mostly, though, really funny entertainment here from Jericho on the Goldberg parody.
I agree. And once again, we weren't going to rate this. Obviously, it wasn't even a match. I just feel bad for Wrath that this guy has been running through everybody the past couple of weeks, and he's been looking good. Gets a TV title.
Television title
and
match.
Not only was it he could have just stayed in the ring and won via count out,
right?
But which doesn't matter. But I feel like there's got to be a rule somewhere where if you are supposed to defend the title and you don't even show up to the match, that's grounds of getting your title taken away. There's one thing about getting counted out. You were in the match and then you were out of the ring.
He got locked out. It's not. He didn't intentionally avoid this match.
Okay, and then you know what? I'll give. I think it was Billy Silverman who was the who was reffing this one. Then you know what? He showed good restraint then because he could have easily taken the title away from Jericho.
There you go. After this, the commentary team is going to kind of take a somber, as Thunder takes a somber turn here. They start discussing Mobile, Alabama. Apparently on Tuesday night they taped their WCW Saturday night, which So if you're a Saturday Night fan, I'm sorry to find out
it's not a live show.
It's not a live show, and they're going to spoil this for you. They start talking about how wrestlers are just people like you and I, and they're going to say that Jim Duggan had an announcement to make. And at this point, we're going to cut to that promo. Duggan's going to get out there and cut a very emotional promo here. He starts out, basically saying, he came out with just a flag and a board. He's not a fancy Dan. Which I didn't know was a term, but I kind of like it.
I've heard it before. I've heard of Fancy Nancy.
Right.
But he's a guy, so Fancy Dancy.
Okay. He said, I would drive 3,000 miles a week in a car with 5 other guys, 9 cities in 7 days, wrestling with broken fingers and broken noses because if you didn't wrestle, you didn't get paid. Talking about the good old days. And he said, he used to not get respect in the dirt sheets. Everybody came to blast him in those dirt sheets. But when he came out here, he heard those chants, USA, 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 just like you and I have been saying. This guy was over with the crowd, and that's pretty much what he's talking about here. And he said, he's proud when he hugs his dad and is able to tell him he loves him, looks into his eyes of his wife, holds his kid's hand, and carrying that flag of the United States of America. That's when he's most proud. And so, he's going somewhere with this. And then at this point, this is kind of where he starts to choke up a little bit, says he needs help from y'all, and says he went to the doctor and was diagnosed with cancer. He says, I don't want to leave my girls alone. God willing, this cancer is going to get removed. It tells you to hold your children closer, say a prayer for the family and me. Obviously a very emotional moment, a serious, shoot here. This isn't a joke. We have the ability of hindsight now, 20 years later, to know that this was caught really early. It was actually caught so early that the surgery was successful. He didn't even need to go through chemo. And he'd be back wrestling in April. So,
which when you think about it, is actually a long time from now because this is September.
This is September.
So I mean, once
6 months.
I've never I've never had cancer, and I've never gone through any kind of major surgeries in my life. But if they were able to, I don't know how much they had to kind of remove because
right.
But to kind of be off for that long, and I don't know if that's just. Maybe WCW just said, hey, take some time off. Like, take as much time as you want.
Sure.
But once again, I feel like the old school wrestler that is Jim Duggan, if the procedure was pretty simple, they were able to get everything out, he was able to recover in a month or two, I was just thinking to myself, you'd be back by January. But he's going all the way until April.
Who knows? Either way, I think we're both.
Once again, I'm not judging Hacksaw.
Right.
I'm just curious what the process is of, what is the recovery like for this, and why is it like a 7 to 8 month long? Because I'm sure he's just like, I'm just going to kick my feet up. But at the same time, he's got a guaranteed contract. If WCW literally says, you're going through a very traumatic part of your life, go ahead and take some time off, be with your family. We've got the storylines going through all the way to this point.
It's not like Hacksaw was involved in any storyline.
Yeah, sure. I definitely understand. This is the biggest storyline that he's ever had, and it's a real thing.
Right.
And so, so good for him. Obviously, he's still. As far as what I've heard in the past, at least the past
still
year,
doing very well.
Yeah, he's still doing fine.
No, it's great to see, and he actually tweets at us from time to time. We're always big Duggan fans here. So I'll be looking forward to that Hacksaw pop when he makes his return because it's going to be like the Hacksaw pop to end all Hacksaw pops. So looking forward to April. You guys have to stick with us. That it's quite a ways away. It's like Thunder 60 or something like that. So in the meantime, after that heartfelt promo, we're going to move to our next match. Canyon's going to be wrestling Nick Dinsmore. You might know Nick Dinsmore as most famously Eugene. He also played Doink, I think, once or twice.
He was 1999 version of Doink the Clown.
Yeah, but Eugene was probably his most famous run. But he's out here wrestling Canyon tonight. Canyon's going to get on the microphone, call himself the innovator of offense, he says he's simply the best. Of course, this is the who's better than Canyon nobody motto. And then he says he's actually too good to be wrestling Nick Dinsmore. So he calls the Lodi in the back and says, hey, Lodi, you need to force Saturn out here. Tell Saturn he's not allowed to hit me and that he has to wrestle tonight. So Saturn comes out holding a sign, basically says that, Lodi rules. He's going to get in the ring, and then he's going to drop the sign and has another sign behind it that says Lodi is not here tonight, which Canyon does not see at first. Then he's going to face Canyon, and that's when Canyon's going to read the sign, and as a realization dawns on him that Lodi did not send him out, Saturn's going to start attacking Canyon. Canyon kind of sells this well. This is where Dinsmore and the referee leave because this match isn't going to happen. and Saturn's going to proceed to attempt to break a couple fingers on Canyon. Eventually, Raven is then going to come out, tell Saturn, or tells the flock to go and beat up Saturn. Saturn says basically, don't do this, don't send the flock in here. Then the flock's going to come in here. He's going to no-sell the stop sign hit from Horace. He's going to suplex Kidman to the outside. He's going to throw the steel steps into Riggs' arm, and then a Death Valley driver for Sick Boy. And that's really one great way to bury an entire stable is you have one guy take them all out. And this is also the same guy who's supposed to be fighting for their freedom in 3 days.
Which also Raven does kind of call him out and say, he's kind of getting in his head and saying, you were all about trying to liberate the flock, and now look at all this carnage you've caused. And Saturn basically just tells him, like, you know what, I've been trying to support you guys. That's why I said, don't come out here, guys. Don't come out here. Please don't do this. And he laid waste to him and said, screw it. This is about my career. Obviously I think his whole thing is like, my heart goes out to you guys, but if you guys aren't going to listen to reason, then I'm just going to lay waste to everything.
Right. So again, another non-match here.
Did you mention the mind over matter?
I was just going to say, okay. and then we wrap this whole segment up as, to quote Bret Hart, Saturn says, at Fall Brawl, it's all mind over matter, and you don't mind, and I don't matter.
All the way around.
But yeah, so he steals the line that we thought was his. And of course, we know that now Bret Hart at least had said it. Maybe it's a famous saying.
I think it is. I don't think Bret Hart made it up.
Right.
I just find it very interesting that the first time we hear it was
Bret Hart and not Saturn. But of course, we'll have to see what happens in 3 days now as we continue to push Raven versus Saturn. After this, we get our first real match of the night. I guess, maybe. Did we rate anything else before this?
We have not. There's not been a single rating.
So this is the first one we've actually rated. Steve Mongo McMichael wrestling Kurt Hennig. Of course, you remember Malenko and Hennig had that cage match apparently on Monday night this past week. We don't know much about what happened, but we do know that Arn Anderson makes an appearance during that, so you must assume there must have been some NWO interference, and Arn kind of came in. We assume we're kind of pushing that Four Horsemen. The NWO is kind of pushing the Arn to come back and
it almost feels like there's now like the NWA team and the Wolfpack are feuding, and then it's like the NWOB team and the Horsemen.
And the Horsemen, yeah, that's a great way of putting it. We're gonna we want flare chants during this match. You might remember Mongo and Kurt wrestling like 3 weeks ago on Thunder, and Kurt working that leg the whole time. That's pretty much the same story we do here. And then exactly as it was written last time, Mongo eventually does a couple 3-point stances. And then the interference comes. And Stevie Ray's going to come in, interfere here. We get a slapjack from Kurt Hennig. He uses the slapjack. And hits Stevie Ray, or Stevie Ray hands it to Kurt. Kurt's going to hit Mongo with it, and then Stevie's going to get it back and hit Mongo with it. Mongo's going to fall like a log. I gave this star and 3/4 because I felt like we finally had to rate a match because it was sort of a match, but I almost feel bad rating it.
I almost didn't want to rate this either. Once again, it's about as good as I think they could do. It looked like, and I've mentioned this before, I think the last time they had a match together, or maybe it was Kurt Hennig taking on Dean on Thunder, I don't remember, but it definitely still looks like Kurt Hennig is favoring his repaired knee. And
it could be.
And I think that Mongo, I know that at one point when he was working the leg, that classic, like, you kind of like put the ankle in between both knees and you kind of like just drop down and kind of put some pressure on the ankle.
Right.
It looked like when Kurt did that, he tweaked something, and he just kind of didn't look the same. He wrestled through it and got better.
He's been wrestling injured, I think, anyways. I mean, he's got braces and stuff on there. He came off that because he missed that original match with Goldberg that got pushed back for injury. So I think he's still. I wouldn't be surprised if he's still not completely healed.
Oh, I think there's a difference between wearing a brace. You can still, because a brace is not something where it's supposed to be treating an injury. It's more like, okay, everything's healed, but you need the brace now because you need to keep certain stability with your knee moving forward.
But I think there's a lingering pain.
It definitely looked like he was in pain for most of the match. But once again, this was a pretty easy to see DQ finish. Just surprised that it was Stevie Ray with the slapjack.
Right. After the match, Buff Bagwell's actually going to be out here too. He tosses a chair in as they're going to kind of team up on Mongo. That brings Dean Malenko out here for the save. And then that also brings out Arn Anderson, who's carrying the 2x4. Apparently now that Jim Duggan is going in for surgery, we have
an extra prop. We just have an extra prop in the back now. So,
so the medical staff's going to come out here. They got EMTs out here checking on Mongo. He's going to eventually take a stretcher job. And then that's going to lead to Tony Schiavone, who's going to get to the bottom of all this Arn Anderson and Mongo Dean ordeal. So he's going to get in the ring. He's going to interview Arn and Dean here. And Arn's going to cut a promo, basically says, you be careful what you ask for. You guys wanted me here. You're pushing me to come back and do something. And then he says, in reference to something we actually saw in Thunder a few months ago now, and says, Dean, at one point I basically said you didn't deserve to be in the Horsemen. You don't get to just say you're in it. You got to earn it. And he says, it's not my call necessarily, but I'd be honored to call you a Horseman. So now you're starting to get this. Are we reforming the Horsemen here with Mongo and Dean and Arn? And at this point, Bischoff's actually going to show up, and he starts out by basically telling Malenko to back off and says, "Did you get your check? You're welcome," which is just kind of a funny thing to say. And then looks at Arn, and this is basically directed to Arn, the rest of the promo, where he says, it's my call if there be another 4 horsemen. Asks Arn who he works for, and Arn, of course, says WCW, and he says no, and he says Turner, and then he says, no, Arn, who do you work for? And Arn basically says, I'm not going to say what you want me to say. And then he's going to pull out a book that Arn wrote, where Arn basically said the Horsemen were the NWO before the NWO was a thing, and Bischoff's going to say, you were here when there was 1,200 people with a promoter who was going out of business. I turned this into, sellouts, the number one promotion everywhere, basically saying it's his show, not the Horseman show. The Horsemen are history and should be viewed that way, like in a museum and not on his television. At this point, Arn is going to basically lose his mind, snap, and strangle the hell out of Bischoff, and it looked pretty good. I mean, Arn doesn't do anything fake, right? Like, Arn looks real and passionate in everything he does.
Arn, we've said this before on other things. He looks just very genuine in everything that he does. Yeah. It doesn't look like everything looks like a shoot. Everything looks like it's believable, and that's the one thing that we've given. We might not say that Arn's a top 10 all-time wrestler, even though he's good. Don't know you're wrong. He's always been a great worker too. But we've given him so much praise about his whenever he has TV time. It's always believable.
And after this, Bischoff's going to start to sell a little bit that he, was choked out. And he said, I might sue you like I sued Ric Flair. And then he says, you want Flair to wrestle again? And this is where he starts saying benevolent, dictator, boss. And he says, well, how about let's arm wrestle for it, left-handed, next week on Thunder. Arn accepts the challenge. Kyle, we've got something to look forward to next week on Thunder. It's an arm wrestling match for Ric Flair's future in WCW.
Okay, so there's a lot and not at all to unpack about this. Like, it just seemed like they keep on building and building and building, and as soon as the crescendo hits, it's like, I'll arm wrestle you for it. And I feel like if I was in the crowd, I'd be like, no, I don't want that. I want someone to get their ass kicked. And once again, that's probably what's going to happen. They're not going to. I don't think I've ever seen an arm wrestling match in the history of wrestling. That just ends as clean. That's just like, oh, good job, dude. It looks like Ric Flair's wrestling again.
You best to be this time.
Right. So I'm sure there's some shenanigans that are going to happen, but it just seemed like they were taking us on a nice little emotional roller coaster and a lot of backstage shoot cut type of stuff. And then it's like, I'll tell you what, I'll let Flair back. To beat me in an arm wrestling match. And I kind of just, for a moment, it was almost like I was snapped out of oh yeah, fuck, this is a 90s wrestling show.
That said, for weeks we have been pleading and begging for something interesting to happen on Thunder.
Yeah, I know, I'll take an arm wrestling match.
It's a fucking arm wrestling match. The stipulations are Flair's return to the company. It's been a while since we've barely had Flair, right? Let's be honest. Since we started,
I think it was the Bret Hart feud, and then he was gone after that match was over.
So I'm all for it. Maybe we're going to even see Ric Flair next week. So I don't think we do, but I'd like to see what happens with this arm wrestling match. I'm looking forward to the fact that we've got a storyline building on Thunder that's going to take place next week on Thunder as well. So after this, we're going to get the commentary who's going to discuss the arm wrestling. which Tenay is going to really hype us up for. And at this point, we start hearing Lodi on a microphone. Out runs Lodi. He's his hair's wet, his shirt's wet. He's got like seaweed dangling in it, and yeah, he does have a fish. He says Saturn threw him in a river. He's looking for Saturn. He's looking for Canyon and everyone else. And they basically say, we don't know where he was at, but he said he's supposed to be my servant, and he threw me in a river. So just kind of a funny segment there. And this is also where we get a second sign of the night, and it says Warrior fears meatloaf. I don't know whether it's the food or the band. Or the person, I should say.
I would say, yeah. I feel like. Well, I think it's both. I don't know, but I would fear none of those things. Actually, I think both of them are delightful.
I enjoy them both myself, but I could see him fearing the food because I know he was very particular about what food he did intake. So I believe meatloaf would not be on Warrior's diet plan.
I feel like Warrior, God rest his soul, he looks like the type of guy that would have quite the palate. And as far as food would be concerned,
he was very particular. I mean, it was like chicken breast, like lean chicken, and like that was it. Like it was very particular. Meatloaf would not at all break his like top 100 of foods that he would put into his temple.
But once again, Lexington, do you think that means he's afraid of it? I don't know. I don't think fear would be the right word. Doesn't prefer meatloaf.
Okay, that's fair. Mm-hmm. So maybe he fears Meatloaf, the artist. Then
I'll go with that then.
Okay. Mystery solved. That's what we do here on Thundercraps podcast.
Well, yeah, we're here to expose all of the rumors out there. That did you think that maybe he feared Meatloaf the meat? No, I think we're really at this point. It's definitely. I would say definitely the singer more than the food.
Well, the next match we got coming up is British Bulldog and Jim Neidhart wrestling Lex Luger. Of course, this somehow became a handicap match, I guess. Like I said, at one point. Apparently, it was alluded to that Lex had to pick a partner because he was double-teamed by these guys. I don't know. Luger comes out. He's got a slight limp to him. It's not a major one. I feel like he should have been selling it a little bit more, if we're going to be honest here.
It looked like he was kind of like had his hand on his side like a ribs and then kind of like walking gingerly.
It was a weak sell job.
Yeah, sure.
When two guys jump you in the locker room and you come out and fight.
But at the same time, he wasn't like walking around giving the two sweets everywhere. So, I mean, he was doing a little bit.
I guess for him it was a lot, but come on. He opens up with his flying forearms, taking out both men, and kind of dominates early. Eventually, the two guys are going to, kind of regain control of the match. And at this point, out comes Bret Hart. Of course, Bret Hart being the brother-in-law of both Davey Boy and Jim. So now you got the 3-on-1 happening here with Luger. But the big swerve happens, and Bret Hart's actually going to attack Neidhart. Now it's a tag match. Luger and Hart Luger a little hesitant to tag in Hart. But he does, and then Hart tags him back in. Torture rack, which Luger really struggles with getting Neidhart on there. I don't know whether he was hurt beforehand or he got hurt during and Neidhart wasn't, doing well with it. It also took a while for Neidhart to actually tap out to it, which I thought just made the whole thing worse.
Yeah.
That's they do win this match. I gave it a star and 3/4. I thought it was weird from the beginning, the way this match was structured. And, I mean, it wasn't a very good match. I don't know what else to say about it.
I mean, the only thing I don't like about it is the swerve, because I don't understand it. It just seemed weird because I didn't know. I know that Bret Hart is not in good terms with the NWO, and I don't know if he's doing this as a way of making it seem like, oh my God, is he going to kind of have an allegiance?
And you thought originally he was kind of just Sting's buddy, so he was kind of looking out for Sting. Now he's looking out for Luger. Is he, going to the Wolfpack? It's something that kind of
looms over our head a little bit.
Right.
I gave it a star and 3/4 as well. And like I said, the thing I wasn't a huge fan of was we just don't know enough between you and I. They don't set this up. Only thing we know is that Bret Hart's on good terms with Hogan and doesn't like the way he's treating Sting. But that's it. There's nothing else. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no other reason for Bret Hart to not like Hogan or the NWO in general. He just says, leave Sting alone. And obviously, Lex Luger and Sting, both in kayfabe and in real life, are best buds. And so I can see that point of being like, hey, you're a friend of Sting's a friend of mine, and maybe that's what he's doing here. And but once again, it's just we just don't know enough, and the commentator and the show itself really doesn't tell the story. We kind of had to piece it together ourselves, and it's easy for us because we can go back hindsight.
Right.
But if we were in 1998, we'd be like, what the fuck's Bret Hart doing here?
Right. But I mean, I guess in '98 we wouldn't be just watching Thunder either. But
right, no, I get that too.
After this, it's our Saturday night promo for the week. It's only 1 hour, and they're kind of calling it a fall Fall Brawl kickoff show, which I don't think is right because Fall Brawl is going to be on a Sunday, but whatever. And they do say maybe more matches are going to be announced. So maybe we've got more to look forward to on what is actually going to be the finalized card for Fall Brawl. At this point, we're going to get our first replay of the night, which is J.J. Dillon telling Hall that he's got a match against Conan that was announced earlier tonight on Thunder.
So nothing from Nitro still.
Nope. And we're going to get the next match of the night, Disco Inferno, accompanied to the ring by Alex Wright. And he's going to be wrestling K-Dog. And, of course, Conan's going to come out, and he started to say just Conan things, but then he says they're here in the Dirty South, so let me hear you say,
Which they obliged.
Yep. And then Disco's going to get on the microphone and says he noticed Conan has been, trying to recruit some of the top stars in WCW, like Goldberg and DDP. And he said that him and Alex Wright would like to join as some of the top stars of WCW. It's a fair thing to bring up.
Once again, you gotta sell yourself. You know what I mean? That's rule number one about wrestling is that you gotta think that you're the best.
Right. And Conan's not having it, which I feel like for a stable that only has right now 4 active members, they could use some help. So maybe they should get Disco Inferno and Alex Wright in here.
Maybe they need a B team a little bit.
Right. But instead he tells them that they can go toss some salads, which you wouldn't hear that in 2019, I guess. Now where here we are, but
also on TBS on a Thursday evening is also not the best time for tossing the salad.
Really, really random and caught us both off guard. But he says he doesn't roll with these saps. Then he starts fighting both of them. So here we go. The match starts in Disco Inferno for the second week or the second in couple of weeks. The last 2 matches he's had get squashed very quickly. This is a former television champion, Disco Inferno here. He was in one of the hottest feuds of 1998 with
Public
Enemy. And here he is getting squashed again. I'm not crazy about how quickly he's losing these matches. I get Conan needs to win this match and win it cleanly, but this was over very quickly with the Tequila Sunrise. Another star and 3/4 for yet another barely match.
Yeah, and I think that's why I gave it a 1.5. My whole thing was exactly what you said was what's going on with Disco Inferno. I understand that he's more of a gimmick character, more of I guess comedy relief, more than he is a wrestler. But once again, I think we've also given him some credit where he can be in a match if they tell him to work one, and he could have.
I have no problem with him losing every match that he's been in, but I feel like he should be able to hold his own a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. And once again, we're talking about Conan here in 1998. I would not want to see 5 to 10 minutes.
No, I'm glad this match ended as quickly as it did. Don't get me wrong.
So once again, that's why it's one of those things where this also could have easily just been not a rated match either. Okay. So, but because we are, and because once again, I don't like either. Just we go from
there hasn't been a match yet that we could have rated that.
We could argue all the matches so far could have been considered duds.
Yep, I agree.
So yeah, but for me, I say 1.5.
After this, Kyle, we're gonna get an interview outside with Mike Tenay standing outside.
Kiss of death right there.
with the Armstrong brothers, and you and I both got very excited about this. Of course, the Armstrong brothers, Steve and Scott, again, 2 weeks in a row on Thunder. Now, first they did get jobbed last week to high voltage, right?
Yeah, they lost high voltage, and Scott Armstrong in here. Which, by the way, little shout out to him because he definitely responded to the gift that we sent out on Twitter. Yeah. So, what's up, Scott? And also, Scott Armstrong looked like he was a CPA. He was in there with just round glasses. They didn't look like they were interviewing 2 wrestlers. They looked like they were interviewing 2 guys from Turner Legal. There's a reason
he's a referee now.
yeah, there's a reason why Scott Armstrong.
Referee and backstage guy. He looked like that in this promo.
Absolutely.
So while they're getting ready for their interview, you got Bobby Heenan standing, creeping in the background in the doors.
He was like the originator of the photo bomb.
Yeah, just standing there. Ernest Cat Miller immediately interrupts this interview, which you and I really wanted to see this interview. Basically says that he's a superstar. He should be the one getting interviews, not these guys. To which they come back and say, we don't get interviews either, which is a fair point. They don't. Then he's gonna say he's a classy guy and he's gonna leave him alone. And that's when he swerves him and kicks them both in the face and says, I am the greatest. And this is Norman Smiley's not gonna stand for this, so he's gonna show up.
Because he was out on the roof. Where were they? On a roof? Or where
I think they're
were
just
they?
standing outside the door to the arena.
Okay.
And you've got Norman Smiley and Ernest the Cat Miller being held back by security and personnel. You got Heenan creeping in the background. You got the Armstrongs jobbing in this. This is single-handedly one of the greatest interview segments we have seen on Thunder.
It is for all the hilarious reasons.
Yeah, it's entertainment. Yeah. Like this is
what I complained about last week.
Right,
like, if it's not important, make it entertaining.
Yes, right. This is the stuff I look forward to. So this is the shit I hope we see more and more of going forward. Even if it's like El Dandy taking a drop kick or a chair shot or something, I don't care.
Or a big running dump. We don't care.
We just want to be entertained. Following this, we got Tony Schiavone in the ring as he's going to be interviewing Piper. Piper's going to come into the ring and say, Lexington, Kentucky, home of the Wildcats.
In case they weren't aware.
Yeah, but then he says he was born a Wildcat too, and that he's going to be a Wildcat put into a cage with a bunch of wolves, as in the Wolf Pack. And then says the Wolf Pack has a bunch of girlfriends that have 4 paws. So that's it's one of those things where just let him go. Tony, the best thing about Piper in this interview is that Tony let him in with a question. And then literally he's like, give me the mic. Right. And then he says he's got the 24-inch pythons that are going to be in there and all the snakes behind him. So now he's talked about the Wolf Pack, he's talked about the NWO, and now he's got to talk about Team WCW.
Which apparently is the most ruthless and shittiest group of them all.
And this is where DDP's going to interrupt him. Of course, his partner in this match calls him stupid, says, hey, stupid, I'm up here. And says DDP basically says he never asked to be captain. He never asked Piper to be on his team. All he did was ask that Warrior join them. And then he, of course, says that, he brought Warrior in to screw with the head of Hollywood scum, Hogan. Which it kind of cracks me up because that's like his catchphrase now. But now he stops and lets the crowd finish with Hogan. I feel like
scum should be the word.
Scum should be the one that you want the crowd to be yelling. You don't want the crowd chanting the heel's name. And that's what you've had happen.
Well, here's the thing. Let the crowd play along. But yeah, but it would be really embarrassing. He was like, Hollywood! And it was like, Hogan. Maybe they weren't sure. Maybe scum, maybe they did a little meeting and they're like, you know what? They're not ready. They're not used to the scum thing yet. Let's just, you lead with the scum. They know who his last name is. Let's make sure everybody plays the game.
And that's kind of be our segment. Of course, one more thing to talk about with this whole DDP thing. Of course, he's going to tell everyone that somebody this Sunday is going to feel the bang. Most of the segment, DDP handed his microphone to the security guard who was standing right there, and then held the security guard's forearm as though he was holding the microphone. So, not sure what that was all about.
No, it's you either hold your own mic or someone else can hold the mic. But it's like, all right, I don't want to hold the mic anymore, so you hold the mic. All right, now I'm going to hold your arm, Just hold your own mic if you want to do that.
Right.
But obviously, he wants to do the bang, so he needs both his hands.
Fair enough. This is where we're going to see our third side of the night, and it says Ed T. Meyer, whoever that is, tosses salad. So, second salad tossing comment or shout out so much. I don't know what Lexington does to bring that out, but it's weird. We have not heard salad tossing at all in 30 other episodes.
Maybe in 1998, did something happen in mainstream media where tossing salad? Maybe there's an episode of South Park or something like that where they start talking about tossing salad, and now that's a new thing to talk about.
We haven't heard anything about it. All of a sudden, a sign and Conan both in the same night.
Mm-hmm.
After this, Kyle, I think the world title is on the line.
We're gonna say it is. Damn it!
It's the first time Goldberg has been seen. Of course, he was here very, very briefly last week. But before then, I don't think we've seen him since his United States title run, and maybe even then he might have only been there once, twice. He's out here against who I'm going to say is the number one contender for the world title.
Sick Boy.
No, not Sick Boy. A man who has come so close to winning every one of his matches, but always losing. Rick fucking Fuller. You might remember Rick Fuller as the guy who jobbed to Marty Jannetty last week. Out here tonight, getting his shot against Goldberg. Goldberg, of course, 142-0, thanks to Mike Tenay. Not that Mike Tenay has jobbed to 142 times.
He did not job 142 times.
He let us know that that's what his record is, of course, because we have not seen Goldberg in so long in the ring, in action on Thunder, so it's nice that he informed us what his record is.
But also, does it feel like that the streak is still a big discussion point anymore now that he is the champion? Was it it was a big discussion when he wasn't the champion because you're giving him reasons to, you're pushing him, but now he's the world champ. There's nothing to push.
You don't see signs anymore,
right?
And
maybe on Nitro he might, because he's on the show, so they're going to pan to the crowd and look for Goldberg signs.
Right. It might be on Nitro more. I know at some point they inflate the numbers and it kind of upset people, so maybe that's part of what's going on here. They went from 100 to like 130. I don't know. But we don't see it like we used to when it was like 60 and 62 and 70.
I think he was 106-0 when he beat Hogan. I know he's over 100.
Right around there, yeah. So, I don't know. But yeah, you're right. We haven't really talked about that. As for this match, Rick Fuller tries his best early on. Calling
the Goldberg match is like getting back on a bicycle. It really is.
Goldberg is going to spear Rick Fuller. This is going to make Mark Curtis really concerned about Rick Fuller's health, as he's going to curl up over him and ask him how he's doing, something you've never seen done in 141 other Goldberg matches. I haven't watched them all, but I gotta imagine the referee doesn't instantly jump on top of the opponent after a spear to see how he's doing. This leads to Hogan and Disciple coming out. Disciple's going to shove Goldberg into Mark Curtis, and
Mark Curtis no souls to shove it.
Then Goldberg is going to jump over Hogan, spear Disciple. At this point, they're going to roll out of the ring. Mark Curtis is going to get up. Rick Fuller's going to take a spear or a jackhammer at this point. That's a 1-2-3, not a disqualification. Kind of just a whole funny thing. Mark Curtis is either going to be the blindest ref in the world or what. They didn't want to DQ Rick Fuller, I guess. So he was squashed. Normally I give Goldberg matches a 1 3/4, but damn it, it's been so long I haven't seen a Goldberg match. 2 stars.
I mean, I'm going to give it 2 stars just because obviously it's not because of the match. I mean, it was a good spot with Disciple, not the part where he shoves Goldberg into Mark
Right.
Curtis. That was just, it was one of those things where it was so bad it was hilarious that Mark Curtis is like, I don't know what that is. We're just going to keep on dealing with Fuller here, who clearly is bleeding profusely, maybe. I don't know. But he was able to patch him up quick enough in order for him to take a jackhammer later in the match, which obviously Mark Curtis likes to pantomime every single cool move that's ever done. So when Fuller took the jackhammer, you can follow along with Mark Curtis. But once again, I gave it a little bit higher rating because also Hogan shows up in this, and there's a good progression of a story. This is the first time I think we've seen. First of all, hardly seen Goldberg or Hogan, but the fact that we're seeing both of them, and Hogan's making the argument that like Goldberg stole the belt from him and that's his belt, and Goldberg's saying, come in here and get it. And so there's good heat, there's good, the crowd is super into this moment.
This is easily, laugh all you want about Goldberg. His matches are terrible, his wrestling's terrible, but the crowd loves him. And I was watching, I almost ignored Goldberg in this match, but as he was rearing up to spear and stuff, I'm watching the reactions of everybody in the crowd in different ways that they're They are jacked for everything that man does. And he is over. And it's good to see that excitement on a Thunder crowd.
Well, it's also good that we start thinking we talk about who's the most over sometimes. And we joke, and not really jokingly, but it's because the crowd loves him. You got Jim Duggan, you got Diamond Dallas Page, and you got Goldberg. It's probably, as far as what we've seen so far, as far as the crowd being into them. And I know there's some guys in the Wolf Pack that are going to get a good pop and everything. But it's good to know in the world of WCW and the NWO Wolfpack and the black and white, not so much them because they're all heels, but they do get a lot of heat from the crowd. They do get a lot of response from the crowd. It's really good to say that for the most part, when you and I talk about who's really seem to be really over as far as the faces, you could go to WCW and see that probably one of the best over guys are not in either faction of the NWO. There's actually a lot of guys in WCW that are getting really good pops.
After this, we're going to get our second main event match of the evening. Of course, Rick Fuller was in a main event touted match. They said it was a double main event, and Rick Fuller world title match.
Which we're assuming. I don't think it was said anywhere, but I'd like to think in our heart of hearts that Rick Fuller got his one chance.
After jobbing to Marty Jannetty and his new mullet last week, I feel like he earned it.
I feel like, imagine if Marty Jannetty and his new mullet took on Goldberg. I mean, that would have been, 5 stars easily.
Unstoppable.
You could, too high for TV.
Right. Our main event of the evening.
But enough about that. Stevie Ray's here.
Stevie Ray, our main event of Thunder. He is here every week now in the main event. He's accompanied to the ring by Vincent.
Who would have thought that we'd say Stevie Ray, the consummate main eventer?
Wrestling Kevin Nash. So, Stevie Ray's now got his NWO attire, Kyle, so he doesn't have to wear his Harlem Heat
outfit with an NWO shirt.
Right. His DDP ripoff pants. The bell's gonna ring. We got 8 minutes left in the show, which is pretty good for a main event on Thunder. This is also we're gonna get our 4th sign of the night. NWO Big Sexy Kiss My Mom. So
Mom's a fan.
I guess so. Everyone's crotch chopping. I saw Hogan crotch chop earlier tonight. Nash does it here. Stevie Ray's going to do it in this match. So the crotch chops are live and well here in 98. Stevie Ray at one point is going to do a kind of an impressive side kick. Almost like a cryonic kick, if you will, right? Which is probably his best Booker T impression. Which got me thinking, this is Stevie Ray's push right now. Joining the NWO, he's been main eventing every Thunder for weeks now. He's in the main event. He is with Hogan, Sting, Luger, Nash, Hart, Warrior,
Nash.
Piper. They're all there, and Stevie Ray is with them in that main event. The world title, the winner is going to get a world title shot against Goldberg. Stevie Ray is in that. All of a sudden, just catapulted out of nowhere. Ever since he, took over the television title from his brother when his brother got hurt. Booker T, who is by far, in the ring, much better performer at this point. Yeah, his mic skills aren't probably at the level of Stevie Ray. But man, Booker T has not got that level of a push in his time.
Well, once again, all Stevie Ray had to do was go to Eazy-E and the 24-inch Pythons, and look where he's gotten himself.
So it pays to go to the NWO. I just thought about that while I watched him do his best Booker T kick. After that, there wasn't much more that I can compare Booker T to Stevie Ray in this match, as Stevie Ray didn't look pretty good. Nash is going to eventually get a kind of a low blow kick to regain control of this match. He hits the big boot. He's going to go for the jackknife. This brings Vincent in, who's going to miss with the slapjack, which allows Nash to drop the jackknife powerbomb. Then he's going to jackknife Vincent. The match is thrown out at this point because out comes Scott Hall, who was not, in fact, at the golf course, Kyle. I guess we can rate this match. It was a kind of a DQ midway through. Again, I give it a star and 3/4 because the match wasn't very good and the ending was a little weird.
I would have given this 2 stars only because I thought this was probably the best I've seen Stevie Ray in these matches, because I think he's in a match with a guy I think he could have a good match with. And I understand that we saw him with DDP, and I talked about how DDP is a little bit more of an unorthodox wrestler, and it's sometimes he's kind of chaos. And so as long as you can ball it up a little bit and kind of go with the flow, which I don't think that's the thing that Stevie Ray was, acclimated to do. But someone like Kevin Nash, someone who's big as well, and Kevin Nash, I would say I think he's a more skilled worker in the ring. I think a lot of people give him credit for nowadays. Like, I think that when Kevin Nash has his, kind of like Scott Hall, when he has his head on straight and he's feeling, the word is
motivated.
Yeah, when he's motivated, he can put on a good show. He can work and put people over and look good in the process. And I think both of them actually did put on a decent big man versus big man match. The thing that then puts it down to me, star and 3/4 as well, is the ending was pretty shitty, and I think that really came down to, I don't know if Vincent was just a little bit slow.
Timing was weird there.
Yeah, so I think if everything was done right, this was a 2 to 2 1/4. I think that the ending kind of ruined it a little bit because it was just looked like it was choreographed incorrectly.
Yeah. So Scott Hall is, after this match is kind of thrown out, Scott Hall is going to, kind of attack Nash. Out comes Hogan, Bischoff, and Buff Bagwell for some reason. They're clapping and laughing about what's happening here. Hall is pretty much going to be methodically beating on Nash and also kind of stumbling around, which they're kind of alluding that maybe he's under some sort of influence. He's also dancing around. I think
Bischoff even says, like, man, he kind of like laughs about it. It's like, man, it's really hard to control him when he's like this.
Right. We will get our 5th sign of the night, and it says Heartland Kroger is NWO for life. So I don't know. It's nice to know that a grocery store is NWO for life. And then this kind of takes a weird turn as there was like plenty of time left, and the camera's just following the NWO from the ring through the entranceway to the backstage, and they just keep following. And commentary's just kind of talking about war games and what's going to happen and all this. And Tony says, "Oh, we got a few more minutes." So you're like waiting for something to happen. Finally, after like excruciating, it felt like it was forever. It was probably only a minute of them walking. Hogan turns the corner, and spray painted on the locker room wall is the Warrior Owns Hogan, but Owns spelled O-W-N is the One Warrior Nation. Hogan freaks out, and that's our show. Kind of a weird way of ending it. That's your Thunder, though. What did you think?
So overall, I mean, like I said before, as far as the three, the triangle of wrestling, we can both definitely agree the wrestling part of this show was either non-existent or borderline bad. So yes. the matches were nothing to be proud of. I don't think any of the wrestlers are going back there and popping champagne for the matches they had on the show. That said, this definitely felt like a go-home show. This definitely felt like they were pushing a lot of the storylines. Everybody was pretty much here for this. I mean, we didn't have, who was missing from the 8-man? We didn't have Sting.
We didn't have Warrior.
And we didn't have Warrior. But Warrior made an appearance.
Presence.
Yeah, his presence was felt.
As we both did the air quotes on presence because it was a weak way of doing Warrior's presence.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, once again, with everybody being here for this show, you would have thought, like, all I thought to myself was, okay, they're showing him going to the back. And I thought, like, are they gonna? I think you and I even said this is the time for everybody to come to the ring, DDP and Piper, and maybe Sting if we haven't seen him yet. It was also weird that Nash gets beat up and no one helps him.
Nobody helps him. That was very strange.
Right. And I understand they might be outnumbered because it's only Conan and Luger's a little bit hurt from his match.
But even so, you bring Conan, Luger tries to help. You can bring Hart out there. You have Piper out there. You have DDP. You just have an all-out brawl. And then what you can do is you have Smoke enter the ring. You flash all the strobes. And it's like, oh, my God, is Warrior here? Fade to credits.
We're out of time. Yeah. Would have been a good way to get out of here. So,
and then you've got, oh, my God, everybody's brawling. What's going to happen? You have to tune in Sunday.
Right. So I think overall the feel... The crowd was into the whole show. I felt like they enjoyed it. I think from a TV entertainment standpoint, very entertaining show. We had tossing salad references twice in the show. But yeah, the way that the show left us was, I think, a bit underwhelming.
Yeah.
So which was once again, there were a lot of high points that we're all like popping and getting excited for. And then I think they kind of gave us a dud of an ending though.
Right. And I think that's just it. It was overall, one of the better Thunders we've seen in a while. I mean, the bar was really low.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed this. I overall enjoyed the Thunder. Jericho was entertaining. The Arn Anderson stuff was, it was none of the, we were not entertained from a wrestling standpoint the entire night. But they pushed some storylines. It was nice to see a lot of the bigger names here. You've got the, You really are looking forward to War Games in a lot of ways because of what happened tonight. And then, if nothing else, it was a go-home show for War Games. Maybe I'm not going to pay for War Games Sunday, but you bet your ass I'm tuning into Thunder to see that arm wrestling match next week.
Dude, I cannot wait for that for some reason.
But that was their show. That's our show this week. So if you haven't yet subscribed, on your podcast listening device, go do that. Leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. You can always give us a follow on Twitter. We are at Thundercraps. We even got some of the Armstrong brothers and other former wrestlers and stuff tweeting out at us. So we have a lot of fun on there. And you can always go to thundercraps.com for all of our previous episodes as well. That said, go watch War Games Fall Brawl 1998. See who wins that convoluted 9-man cage match. See what happens in Conan versus Scott Hall. And then, of course, check out Thunder 32. That's September 17th, 1999. There is an arm wrestling match. And if that doesn't sell you on it, I don't know what else will. For Kyle Hogan, I am Josh Kaiser, and we will see you next time on the Thundercraps Podcast.
We are OW endingly out of time. See ya.